Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vin Zapola to the stage.
Morning, everyone. We have a capacity crowd this morning. Every seat has been spoken for. So for those of you that are still coming in, there are some seats left in the front. We hope no one is left standing in the back. Thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled to gather today to mark what we hope is a transformational moment in the history of the city and the start of a much longer conversation about the future of Penn Station, Madison Square Garden, and New York. I will spare you the tortured history of the original Penn Station. Well, I'll almost spare you. We all know about the unfortunate demise of that building when a truly remarkable piece of New York was torn down and the new Penn Station was essentially put in the basement of 2 Penn Plaza and Madison Square Garden. But this work of building a new train station is not about recreating the past, it's about preparing for the future. And we believe this is the single most important project for the future of New York City. A new Penn Station will improve commutes for millions of people each year. It will ignite economic development in the Penn District and beyond, and it will represent the kind of extraordinary civic rethinking New York City has to continue to undertake to remain one of the world's great cities. So why are we having this conversation now? When the decision was made in the early 1960s to tear down the old Penn Station and move Madison Square Garden from 50th Street and 8th Avenue to its current location, the city granted Madison Square Garden that permission for 50 years, knowing the needs of New York would probably have to be revisited at some point. And 2013 marks the expiration of that permit. We all know and appreciate the incredibly important value of Madison Square Garden, and we're excited about the garden's future, we hope in the form of an exciting 21st century arena and complex. Unfortunately, the process of building a 21st century Penn Station is complicated by the location of Madison Square Garden directly above it. Madison Square Garden's foundations are literally anchored within Penn Station. This profoundly constrains the ability to make improvements to the most important train station in America. MAS, along with our colleagues at the Regional Plan Association, have joined forces to form an alliance for a new Penn Station and are advocating for the renewal of the permit for only 10 more years to provide the planning window to relocate the garden and build a modern Penn Station. Now, I know some of you may be thinking, isn't Moynihan Station supposed to be the solution? The state and the Port Authority are currently in phase 1 of converting the Farley Post Office building located across the street from Madison Square Garden and Penn Station along 8th Avenue into Moynihan Station. MAS absolutely believes Moynihan is a vital part of relieving the congestion of Penn Station. However, when complete, the new station will only serve Amtrak, leaving the vast majority of commuters, 95%, within the existing confines of Penn Station. A new Amtrak station in the converted Farley Post Office is a key piece, a vital piece of the puzzle, but a new Penn Station complex needs to include both sides of 8th Avenue. What makes this particular moment all the more important is that Amtrak is now undertaking a new study to bring high-speed rail along the Northeast Corridor, to which many of us say amen. We're also anticipating tens of thousands of new residents, workers, and visitors to the area right around Penn Station as a result of new development in Hudson Yards, placing an even greater burden on an already way overburdened and unsustainable infrastructure, no matter how you look at it. So now is really the time to envision a new Penn Station in the next Madison Square Garden. And with its vote last week to limit Madison Square Garden's permit to 15 years above Penn Station, the City Planning Commission has concurred. It is now up to Speaker Quinn and the City Council to complete the work and restrict the permit to 10 years and to remove a critical loophole which Michael Kimmelman eloquently described in his article this Sunday. To help us navigate these incredibly complicated issues, MAS has invited 4 of New York's most respected design firms, Diller, Scofidio, and Renfro, H3 Hardy Collaboration Architecture, Shop Architects, and SOM, all recognized for their wide-ranging experience in tackling extraordinarily complicated urban sites, to re-envision New York's Madison Square Garden and Penn Station, and to set the stage for the tremendous opportunities that an enlivened, rebooted, resurgent Midtown District presents. The talent and experience you will hear from today is truly extraordinary and is one of the reasons that we can't help but be optimistic in the face of incredibly significant obstacles. A new Penn Station is not an if, but a when. It must be done, and the time to begin that regeneration is now. Each of the design teams will present their ideas and then sit down in a conversation moderated by Michael Kimmelman, who has been one of the leading public voices on this issue. Thank you, Michael, for all that you've done to explain the issue to fellow New Yorkers. We're all in for a really, really special morning. Now it is my pleasure to introduce the first of our 4 firms, H3 Hardy Collaboration Architecture.
I'm Hugh Hardy, and the time is now. This is when opportunity is challenging our generation to improve a part of this city in several extraordinary ways. Properly sequenced, we could use basic urban planning ideas to improve life for almost everyone that now uses an unappealing place. But does New York still have the capacity to create improvements and use strategies that create places to easily bring people together for a variety of diverse experiences? For H3, urban planning is not just a question of where to place buildings and activities, but how. Appropriate connections among multiple places could greatly enliven what is a less than inspiring part of town. How can mass transit in newly efficient forms regain its hold on public imagination? And where do we find the financial resources to make such major improvements while respecting a new awareness of environmental issues? Underlying it all, we believe a well-planned and easy-to-use transportation system, one that comfortably brings people to and from the city, could form the basis for regeneration of all of Midtown West. New Yorkers love to complain, but why can't we have public transport make access and use of the city a more welcoming experience for everyone who comes here? Why couldn't we discover Midtown West as a place to learn new things, pursue new ideas, live in new ways, and find new employment and opportunities, as well as new forms of culture and entertainment? Most important, why can't we be proud of this place and see it enhance lives every day with the same vibrant activity that now benefits Grand Central? My partner, John Fontillis, is about to show you a series of proposals made into a coordinated plan to be realized over time. Our aim is ambitious, but New York needs to think big if we're going to maintain our traditional role as a place that gives easy access to information, enjoyment, and ideas. John, how do we improve the lives of 1 million people each day?
Thanks, Hugh. Thanks, Vin and the Municipal Arts Society. Thank you, Times Center audience people. How do we improve the lives of 1 million people each day? Let me first introduce you to a couple of the people who use Penn Station every day in diverse ways. When Jerry tries to catch his 6:15 home to Fairlawn, he often misses the train because of the crowds and must wait for the next. When Carol comes down from the Bronx, she's retired and she takes the 3 to use the main library. She wants to write fiction and wants to find a class nearby convenient to her schedule. Doug, in town for a meeting, has to leave early to catch the Acela home for Boston, and his client has a last-minute question. He wishes he had a little more time to answer it. The Andiamos are visiting from Italy. After dinner on the east side, they want to see the circus elephant parade at Madison Square Garden. They want to take the subway, but only have this really confusing tourist map. Kristen IMs her childhood friend Jessica, who's visiting New York City for the first time. She says, don't worry, take the air train to Jamaica, transfer to an LIRR train to Penn, and don't worry, I'll meet you on the lower level at track 20. And Jessica responds, These people and a million more use, live, and work near Penn Station every day. For some, it's not a comfortable experience, and I don't think most New Yorkers would put it among their top 10 favorite things about the city. How can we make something so central to so many people's lives a better place? Well, the obvious answer is to improve Penn Station. What we found is that you can't truly fix Penn Station's problems unless you move Madison Square Garden as well. Perhaps the better question is, where would Madison Square Garden want to be? Well, maybe it's a place that's close to transit, connected to existing tourist, hospitality, and entertainment attractions. A place that provides an enhanced patron experience, better service, and functional access. And a place that creates a singular new identity for the garden. Of all the sites considered, we believe the western end of 34th Street meets this criteria. Partnering with appropriate government agencies, Pier 76, which is now the Toe Pound, could be extended down to 33rd Street, creating a 16-acre site on the Hudson, where Madison Square Garden could be located. But how would you get there? Well, the new 7 Flushing Line subway stops at 11th Avenue and 34th Street, and a park promenade could bring people up and over 12th Avenue to the arena's front door. An LIR station could be built underground here in the northern part of the yard, and a Metro North station on the Empire Line could be built underground here. New York Waterway's 39th Street ferry terminal is next door with service to New Jersey, and there could even be a bikeway and elevated pedestrian walk, let's call it the Water Line, connecting Hudson River Park, 42nd Street, the West Side, and back to Penn. Finally, if you extend the 7 line back to Penn Station, loop it under Park Avenue to Grand Central, you could create a 7-circle line connecting East and West Midtown with all major subway and regional train lines. This site puts MSG near all the attractions, hotels, and restaurants that feed the city's $55 billion tourist entertainment and media industry. Most importantly, locating MSG next to Javits would stimulate new thinking about hosting large-scale conventions, trade shows, and special events in the city. So with MSG as an anchor to the west, we can reimagine Penn Station. By far the busiest on the Northeast Corridor, the current facility is way over capacity. Let's see if I can get this to work. Here is the site for Penn Station. Here is the Farley Post Office building to the west, and the tunnels going off to the west of New Jersey. Amtrak and New Jersey Transit have a plan called Gateway that builds 2 new tunnels under the Hudson feeding directly into Penn Station. New Jersey Transit could run more trains through, and we can connect our new 7-circle line right next door. Amtrak's high-speed rail trains would use these tunnels and continue north to Boston. To the north, well, let's see. Well, to the north, there could be a bus terminal that could connect to the north, the regional commuter bus services that are growing in use here in the city. All these new connections will transform the way we think of the Northeast Corridor, and while the Acela takes now 3 hours to get to DC and 3.5 to Boston, future high-speed trains will cut that down to 90 minutes. Why wouldn't we want to improve the gateway through which you could get anywhere in the Northeast in less than 2 hours? If Penn Station can be reconfigured to provide better access to the region, it would allow the Farley Post Office building, also known as Moynihan Station, to be used differently. The Farley building could be converted into a center for education. 2 million square feet of academic use would provide a different type of accessibility. Access to community college programs, adult learning, business incubation, work credential programs, and job training. Drawing students to this accessible location from throughout the tri-state region, not just the city, it will help train employees for high-value and high-demand industries in the future. Without compromising access to the trains below, Amtrak's West Concourse will remain and service trains, the train platforms from 8th Avenue, and the post office windows will remain as well. And the rest of the building would be academic classrooms, support spaces, and laboratories. There could even be a large event hall under the historic mailroom skylight. Twice as big as Waldorf Astoria's Grand Ballroom, it would be the largest column-free banquet and event space in the city. Now, these are all grand plans, but how do we pay for them? To add to the required contribution of public funding, one method is to allocate large footprint development sites at the 4 corners of the station, 1, 2, 3, 4. These buildings could be designed not strictly as commercial office towers, but as hybrid buildings, offering diverse activities which are essential to the sustainable growth and urban cultural vitality. 6 acres of active public space would be provided to increase value on the ground as well. And in addition, several sites along 7th Avenue could be upzoned to convert these sites into mixed-use developments, extending the renewal of Times Square and 42nd Street south to 34th Street. Most importantly, all these sites benefit from easy transit access to the 50 million people living on the Northeast Corridor and all the businesses and markets therein. Why wouldn't companies want to locate in such an accessible place? So let's take a look at these moves a little bit in detail. To orient you, here are the existing buildings on the Penn Station site. And again, where would MSG want to be? In Manhattan, there are few sites big enough that could accommodate the arena, and even fewer that aren't held by private interests. 12th Avenue next to Javits has always felt like the West Side's backyard. How can we flip this to make the area more accessible? Well, let's extend the pier south and service the arena at grade. The park promenade could rise up from 11th to 12th Avenue, crossing over, and patrons would enter the arena at this level. The water line would provide 2 other means of access, and below, Hudson River Park shoreline would be restored to encourage marine life. Javits could pursue the expansion plan it shelved 5 years ago, expanding its capacity to be one of the top 10 centers in the country. So, with Madison Square Garden relocated, Penn Station could truly become a multimodal transportation center. With the ACE and 123 trains adjacent and the 6th Avenue, Broadway, and PATH trains nearby, the key is getting passengers distributed as quickly as possible. That means straightening and expanding the exit concourses where passengers first arrive, and when Penn South is added, the Gateway project, extending those concourses to accommodate those new platforms as well. The West Concourse under the Farley Building steps would be completed, and the number 7 Circle Line would anchor the south end of the station complex. The Gimbels passageway would be expanded to connect to subways and PATH trains at Herald Square, and the station itself would have a central departure and waiting room concourse where all the train services would be clearly marked and accessed from. New Jersey Transit, high-speed rail at the bottom, Amtrak Regional, Long Island Railroad, and bus terminal on the top. The train hall above ground would span above, extending from 34th Street down to 30th Street, with a retail concourse towards 8th Avenue, and on 7th Avenue, a park. On the roof, another 3-acre roof garden. This bottom-to-top transformation of Penn Station will make connections easier and clearer. There will be enough space to accommodate the crowds, and the station will have the architectural distinction to match Grand Central. Across 8th Avenue, the Farley Building will be converted into the Center for Education at Moynihan Station. Next door, the water line will provide bicycle and pedestrian connection from Penn to the west side, and we will restore the building's interior spaces and provide expansion space. Now, looking at the district from above. Rezoning the 4 sites will allow for a significant new tower at 34th and 7th, a super tall skyscraper, maybe 180 stories tall. Together, these 4 sites would total 14 million square feet. 8 additional sites along 7th Avenue provide 10 million square feet more. So those are the parts of the scheme, but what kinds of places and experiences do we create? Well, on 7th Avenue, we would have a park that spans 3 blocks in front of the station, an incredible open space in an area of Midtown that's lacking in them. As we move through the park, bioswales and raised mounds will allow light down into the station below. Now we're in the train hall, 120 feet high with large skylights will capture daylight from above. Below the train hall will be the departure concourse and the platform level, where additional sets of escalators and elevators will increase the ways passengers can get on and off trains. Exiting will be clear and more logical. At the west exit concourse, this open space will reach up to daylight and air. Moving up further, the retail concourse above on 8th Avenue will have 3 levels of shops, restaurants, and amenities to serve both the station and the district. Above that, a 3-acre stepped terraced garden and a rooftop gallery space opposite the Farley Steps will be accessible directly from 8th Avenue. A sunlit horticultural garden, fragrant, colorful, and green, overlooking the west side with views of the river beyond. The water line will extend west from the terrace for joggers, bicyclists, and pedestrians and connect to the MSG Promenade. And here would be MSG's spectacular new home. It remains the center of sports, entertainment, media, and pop culture in the city. Its concerts, its dog shows, the circus, the Rangers, the Liberty, and the Knicks. These new buildings will define the new skyline of New York. Located in the center of the city, Penn Station will be the heart of a 50 million person metropolis. We understand this is a long-range plan and will not happen overnight, but it's a plan that works in synergy with real transit improvements, new and expanded public activities, and private development. The economic increase in value the plan represents is immense, but it also takes into account the livable environment we must leave to future generations. Planning is never just about pretty pictures. It's figuring out what we need and making choices for the future. When people think of big urban plans, we often get caught up about all the buildings and forget about the people. This group of people, just a few of the million who use Penn Station each day, will have better lives if we can make changes in the plan. A new Penn Station can make life better for people who use it and the rest of the city. The time is now. Thank you.
Please welcome SOM to the stage.
Hi, I'm Roger Duffy from SOM. We'd like to ask you to imagine what you'd like the future of this part of the city to be. Anything's possible. We're optimistic. But before we get to that, I wanted to start by evaluating and reevaluating our past values. In the 60s, we had this magnificent train station. It was quoted by the historian Vincent Scully that used to enter the city like a god. And this speaks to our current values. It's a disaster. What are our intended values? What do we think this site can be? Hugh and others have said that between 600,000 and 1 million people a day move through this site. It's the most trafficked transportation center in North America, some say the Western Hemisphere. The city has massively upzoned the adjacent Hudson Yards. Others have said that this will put increased pressure on Penn Station. With all the collateral development, it'll put even more pressure on Penn Station. Grand Central, a masterpiece, was conceived in tandem with surrounding development. So transportation went along with other kinds of development. Hudson Yards, paradoxically, is commercial development that precedes major transportation investment. Seems wrong-headed to us. Our team has imagined a magnificent future, one that when you arrive at this station, you can see the city. We've lifted it up, so from the tracks, you know where you are. You've arrived in New York. It speaks to our intended future values, what we want New York to be. All of us can make this happen if we put our minds to it. But these values extend beyond making a great station. They relate to investments in the regional infrastructure of transportation, not only this current infrastructure, but future infrastructures, the direct connections to all the airline terminals directly from Penn Station and Grand Central Station, all the high-speed rail and regional commuter rail services. Our precise proposal here is to expand the station from its original site 2 blocks to the south to accommodate all the future rail needs, and to place off-site as a complementary development Madison Square Garden. You can see it's south of the Farley building. On north and south sites adjacent to the station will be a collateral commercial development of some sort. So we have imagined the ground plane to be given over wholly to the public. This scheme is a prioritization of the public realm. Secondary uses will be for commercial and living, et cetera. On the right here would be the front piece of Farley. From the station, when you arrive, you can have an intuitive view of the tracks, like the Berlin station, main station in Berlin near the Reichstag, which is fantastic. And you can also arrive and see the city. Imagine such a thing. And then this extended use of the ground plane, a new public park below which is the new reimagined Penn Station, newly expanded to accommodate all the future uses. A great train room at the center from which you can see intuitively all the tracks below. Above it, new layers to the city, something we imagined the city to be in the future, places to live, places to work, places to recreate, above and included and intertwined with the ground plane of the city. We have enough public parks to multiply Bryant Park by 4 times, layered vertically in the section. We have places to live that are larger than Tudor City in its aggregate. We have commercial development that spans the station that's equal to Rockefeller Center. And we have cultural destinations elevated in the city that are equal in size to the venues of Lincoln Center. All of this can happen in combination with great investment for Penn Station. In its aggregate, the sum of the parts, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It could be a new way to conceive of the city. This is not just about transportation. This is about great transportation and reimagining what the city can become in the future. Layered parks, prioritization of the public realm, an elevated park, and a skyline park accessible to the public that overlooks the skyline of the city with garden terraces that look down over the transportation station below. We think that our future values could achieve something like this. We can have it all. We can have great transportation and a great new heart to Midtown West that is a complement to the Grand Central Station and collateral development there. Anyway, it's a privilege. Thank you. And we're excited to see what our professional peers have come up with and share all the ideas with you today.
Please give a round of applause. Next up, please welcome DSR to the stage.
Hi, Charles Renfro of Dillers Confetti and Renfro. Thank you for inviting us to this truly exciting study. Over a century after its construction and a half century after the wrecking ball turned it into dust, the ethos of Stanford White's Penn Station in the public imagination outlives the second generation transit complex that replaced it. A grand civic space, it embodied the collective aspirations of an emerging economy and culture, one founded on growth, speed, and innovation. A new Penn Station design must hark back to its noble roots while updating its ambitions for the 21st century.